Hi, I'm Seamless, and this is still Tuesday, and this is the 40th plus 10th 40K tutorial, which just means I'm done. And if you were curious as to why the plus nomenclature, this is because the 40K was to celebrate that I reached 40,000 subscribers, and the plus 10 is because at literally the same day that I hit 40,000 subscribers, I also hit 10,000 Facebook likes. So I decided to commemorate both, and that equals 40K plus 10. And that's this one, the last one, and it sounds like this. Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, this was... I did a lot of very kind of clever things, like interesting things to get this to work. I didn't quite get it, though. It's still a little not quite similar, but it's still similar enough, you know? It's also a kind of sound that really, how different can you be from the rest of the things that sound like this? Anyway, to start, I have used Harmor. The reason why I used Harmor is because when I heard it, and then when I looked at the spectral, like the frequency activity in the spectrum, I noticed that it seemed a little squished. And there's more than one reason why that could be, but I decided that I was going to mimic this by using Harmor's detune function. Now, what the detune function does is that it controls the harmonics sort of elasticity against the fundamental. By default, you have this spread, but I wanted this spread. And what it does is it moves the harmonics close together by double. So it still sounds like the same note, and it still sounds like a saw wave, but despite being the same note, it sounds lower all of a sudden. And it has a very particular kind of texture to it. So that's why I did that there. I put two of them on because on the first one, I have Hertz unison engaged with some interesting harmonic use and pitch shaping going on to kind of mess with the higher harmonics to get them to sound all motiony and all that. But not too much, because the sort of the style that the sound is from is that the lead element still kind of sounds pretty much like a saw wave. It doesn't really deviate that hard from that. Deviates a little bit, though. So that's what that was, a little deviation. I also articulated the unison to shut off pretty fast, just so that the sound could be pretty consistent after the first note hit. Then part B is literally just a copy of it, but without any unison at all. So that's just a pretty stable, regular sounding saw. Both of them have the exact same level of vibrato engaged. Just pretty standard. Getting kind of engaged at the taste. After that, it's distorted with the hill type, which I did because it has a particular kind of sharpness to it that I liked. And I'm sure there's a reason for that, but I don't know what it is. Never really found out. After that, though, I'm doing a bunch of stuff in the... there is one more thing I did in the Harmor. Actually, a pretty important thing I did in the Harmor. In the global EQ, part A, I just realized I didn't apply this to part B, and it's probably a reason why some of that sounds a little bit incorrect. But now, I'm not going to mess with it because this is what I decided to go with. But in part A, I have this global EQ going on that is is shaped very specifically. And this specific shape is shaped to sort of my own taste in terms of how I thought it sounded, but also I kind of just looked at the recording of the sound that I was making, and I looked at what frequencies there were cuts and not cuts at. And the reason why this was viable is because also when I looked at the image of it all, I saw that there was no movement in the EQ shape, like applied to the spectrum itself. Despite the notes moving around, there was no movement on where the cuts and boosts were, which meant that there was a static business applied to it, and so that means a static business could work, and that's what I did with the global EQ there. Because I could have done it with the local EQ, and it would have followed the notes, but that was not what happened. So yes, that happened inside Harmor as well. Now, in the mixer, I've got an EQ which further kind of colored it, and then like this is mostly the taste, and also the high pass was again determined by the activity present in the recording of the original. Maximus I was using as kind of like a multi-band wave shaper, because you can see in the bands here, I've disabled all the time variables, which means that this effectively becomes a wave shaper window, a multi-band wave shaper, and that's plenty cool. Master is not doing anything. I'm keeping the compression just the way it was, and it has a nice kind of limiting quality to it. Feels very squishy. I like it. There's a peak controller, which is reading the input from there, which is essentially the dry part before the reverb, and I set the bass to be pretty high up and the volume to be negative, so that we're actually starting the parameters that I'm going to be moving at top and then they're going down the bottom. And the parameters I'm moving are the 2 reverbs that I have going on. Now, the 2 reverbs are not just simply 2 reverbs. They're actually serving a purpose each. One of them, this one, is primarily high frequency. It's very undampened, it's very tinny, and very high washy kind of thing. It's a little bit longer than the other guy, which is more mid-rangey and boomy kind of sounding. And yeah, that's what they're for. And I mean, they are in series, which means that one is feeding into the other. But given the high cut, low cut behavior of the two, they are still going to be present. And also, there's like nice stereo spread on the two. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to this. I guess I have to give you the FLP for this one so that you can access this business here. I should have done it in a patcher, but I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, so we're done with 40Ks, which is good because it's actually almost time for 50K. And I really don't know if I'm going to be doing the 50K tutorials because I feel like that doesn't really the meaning of that has kind of lost its meaning since I honestly just have been doing 40Ks for kind of a long time. I don't know. I'll figure out what I'll do though, and I'll announce all of that, you know, on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, and also on YouTube probably. And it'll be a good time. If you have any questions about any of that, let me know. And as usual, have a nice day.